Welcome to the Humanity, where we do the things with the stuff for the people. I am Matt.
And I'm Tommy. And tonight we're going to have a discussion about perception things and reality mabobs and how they're connected. And as you may have read by the description that I typed up, I'm not really sure exactly what all we are going to talk about because this is the thing that Matt was musing on, apparently. And I couldn't think of anything to talk about. So I was like, sure, we'll talk about those things. So, welcome to it.
Indeed. So, what are you drinking?
Wow, getting right to it this week. I like it. So I'm doing Mad Tree's tree search again, but this is a different one than I guess a few weeks ago now. But whatever I had, this is number 14. I don't remember what number the other one. It was like 12 or 13 or whatever. This one, not with a lager yeast like that one was. This one seems a bit more straightforward. It's regular American ale yeast with Citra and Chinook hops. So, but much like the other tree search, like pretty light on the body and everything. But yep, tastes like an IPA. Like a bit more on the maybe floral end, I might say. So, yeah.
I don't know if I've had that one. I think I had the lager one.
Yeah.
I was less of a fan of that one.
Yeah. It was still good, but I think this one's definitely better.
I've had some ales that taste like lagers, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, if it has lager yeast, it's not technically an ale, right?
Yeah, I don't think so, because that's like literally what classifies it is the type of yeast you use.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe it also has to do with how it's brewed. So, all right, so I'm going to nerd out on brewing for those of you who care, or even if you don't care, I'm still going to do it. So it's because we used to do some home brewing. This was over 10 years ago now, the last time we made some. We need to do that again. Anyway, so there's two different kinds of beer yeast, and then from there they go in different subcategories. Basically, there's ale yeast and lager yeast. Ale yeast only ferments at room temperature. So that's why what a lot of home brewers do, because it's a lot easier. You just brew the stuff, put it in a bucket, and stick it in a dark closet for a few weeks, and you're golden. Lagers, they can ferment at room temperature, but in order to get like the actual, the traditional lager method, and to get the way they're actually typically taste, you actually cold ferment it. Because I guess if you room temperature ferment it, like it still ferments, but it ends up tasting more like an ale, but still a little lagery. But yeah. Well, we just lost somebody, so I can tell that was a compelling explanation. So maybe.
Oh, I hate lager yeast.
So maybe we should move on to you. And
I'm having Fatheads IB Yusuf. High IB Yusuf. Not actually all that high. It's only 75. I mean, only. But I've had like 90 before.
Yeah.
But
yeah, as far as beer goes, I guess you would still consider that higher. But yeah, but to specifically call it out like that, you would expect it to be. And what are and at the risk of you nerding out as much as I did and alienating our audience further, what is an IBU, Matt?
It's an international bitterness unit, right? That's what the I is for.
Yep.
It
can be bitter everywhere.
It's a measurement of how bitter the beer is. So I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but it has like almost like a yellow glow to it. And
I can kind of pick that up.
I think the reason why they named it IB Yusuf is because I think it's heavier on the hop oils. Because that would give it like a slightly more solid consistency. I mean, you know what I mean? It's still liquid. If you look through oil, right? The light does something different when you're looking at how it plays with oil than with water. Like it's more dense. And so this looks more dense to me. Okay.
Interesting.
That's that.
Yeah. And since no one asked, update on the facial hair. Still haven't shaved. I don't know if you can tell at all, but yeah, starting to grow something in. I don't know if you technically say I have a beard again yet, or just. I'd say
something gray, more gray this time.
I'd say glorified stubble, but I don't know if this is even that glorified. But this is the stage where if you could see it in person, you could really tell just like how thin and patchy my beard really is. I mean, you can probably tell anyway. But I've just been reminded for people who are fans of the Homestar Runner. You remember the Homestar Runner? That's back. That was big when we were in college. I think like early 2000s.
Here, by the way.
Yeah, early and mid 2000s, that decade. And there was this one episode. I think it was. I don't know if it was one of the regular cartoons or if it was one of the Strong Bad emails. But like
those were good.
Yeah, but at the end, like I don't know if it's like because it's the middle of the night or the morning, but like Homestar comes in, you could tell like he just woke up. He's wearing like a robe and slippers, and he's all groggy. But like his face looks like he has like a 5 o'clock shadow or something. And someone mentions it, and Strong Bad's like, "Yeah, I didn't know you need to shave." It's like, "Oh, I don't. It's cinnamon." So I've just been thinking of that a lot recently. So. And I've been waiting for a chance to actually use that somewhere. So I figured I'd force it here tonight with y'all. So
he doesn't shave because it's cinnamon, but he also doesn't have a beard.
No, he's saying like it's that wasn't face. He's like, no, my face is just covered with cinnamon. He's like, it's like no explanation. Just, of course. Yeah.
So it looked like he had a beard.
Yeah, but it was just he just had cinnamon on his face. So.
Good times.
Yeah. So for me, if anyone wonders, this is not cinnamon. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. I feel like we have less to distract ourselves with tonight. It almost feels awkward. It's like, should we go ahead and start talking about the topic now?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. I got like several things going on in my head.
Yeah.
We had a client earlier. I already did like a little job for her, and I was gonna power wash and stain her deck, her son's deck. But I'm talking to her. She's his mom.
Yeah.
And she tried to like nickel and dime the cost down or something. Because it's like, so I estimated, power wash it, 2 coats of stain, and which is normal. And she's like, well, my son says it only needs 1 coat. I was like, that's not true, but okay. And like, how do you say no? That's wrong. Like the label on it says 2 coats, not because they're being fancy, but because that's what it needs.
Yeah.
And there's like bare wood and stuff. So I feel like I was being asked to like compromise on how good a job I do. And then when she gets back later, she's like, oh, he just power washed it. So we're like, I don't know. I guess my principles are worth, what I was going to charge her. So I'm going to rush through the power washing, do an okay job. They're just trying to get ready to sell. That still is, I don't know. That's kind of a jerk move, people. You're like, how can I band-aid this with a non-durable solution?
Mm-hmm.
And fuck them over.
Yeah. And when you like, I don't know if they like signed anything, but apparently it sounded like they at least kind of agreed to a thing, and then they just without asking you say, oh, we went ahead and just did this part. It's like,
oh, we were in the process of agreeing on something, and then she just kept like taking things off, and I was like, so now you just want me to like stain the dirt on the deck? That's what we're doing. Just pretend it's clean, and I'm just gonna roll dirt onto my roller. Neat.
Yeah. So charge you for an extra roller. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was just a bummer, but it worked out because I'm still gonna make money on the deal.
Yeah. Nice.
She made a comment. Okay. So we can kind of gauge where somebody falls on the political spectrum when they find out that our kids are homeschooled, right? So what we find out is how left or how right they are. Because both ends of the spectrum are cool with it.
Yeah.
Depending, right?
Yeah, it's kind of
Like
weird. Yeah.
some caveats, but in general, they're like, oh, that kind of like, oh, okay, that kind of response, or it's like, oh, why would you do that to anyone? And that's like in the middle.
Mm.
Um, and I had her. So anytime a white lady in her 60s uh, says, um, "I was just hearing about the schools." Anybody like in Cincinnati, when you hear somebody say that, like to me, that says, "Hey, I'm a conservative, and I just want to make sure that like we're on the same page, and I can like say something off-putting next." And
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
yeah, that's my assumption. Maybe it's not accurate, but
Yeah. Yeah, because I know like there's the stereotype of getting back to homeschooling, like there's a stereotype of homeschool families, like they all do it for like religious reasons, and they're usually like super conservative Christians, like want to shelter their kids and keep them from learning like the evolution and the homosexuals and
that's who goes to the homeschool conventions. Like when we were at
yeah.
the Cincinnati one, that's how what
Hmm.
most of them were.
Yeah, but the thing is, most of the people I actually know who homeschool their kids are like complete opposite.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, Cincinnati has a
it's
vibrant community of those people as well. We have
that's good.
we have some decent homeschool co-ops
Hmm.
that kind of function like private schools more or less. There's one that works out of Imago, which is that urban nature preserve kind of place. It's like
Mm-hmm.
7 minutes from your house.
No, yeah, I know I've heard of it. I don't think I've been there though. Yeah.
It's all right. I mean, it's an yeah, no, it is a neat place to go.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess like maybe we should take advantage of having something that's only 7 minutes from my house, unlike everything else in the city that's at least 20 or 30.
It's
So,
really they're just like they have a pretty big lot for in Price Hill, and it was donated a long time ago, and they were working on removing all of the non-native species of plants from it, kind of
hmm,
like having a restored area,
nice.
like a teeny tiny little nature center.
Mm, sounds cozy. I don't know why it sounds
And
cozy.
a
But,
bunch of hippies there,
uh,
granola types.
yeah, nice and
Anyway,
crunchy. Yeah.
straight off topic, you were talking about homeschool.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
it's
I'd
not.
said pretty much like how,
Oh,
like,
okay.
yeah, most of the people I actually know don't fit the what most people think of when they think of schoolers. Yeah, but speaking of the kids, I also wanted to point out because it's something my daughter's super excited about. People notice like my little prop this week, other than our old pal Robbie P. This is my daughter's stuffed animal. Not just any stuffed animal. This is actually the very first stuffed animal we ever bought for her. Like when we found out that we were pregnant, and so got a little. We were at IKEA looking for other things and found like how they have like just the huge bins full of all the stuff.
Yeah.
Like we saw that and we're like, oh, that's cute, and we just decided then for whatever reason his name was going to be Mr. Fuzzy Bottoms. So that's
Wilford P. Fuzzy Bobs.
oh, I'll tell her that's his name now. But yeah, we were talking about something last night, and oh, it was because there was something else I was planning on using for my prop this week, but she thought it was too creepy, so I'll use it next week. Little teaser for so tune in next week to see what my daughter thinks is creepy, but I think it's pretty awesome. So, but she said, oh, you should use Mr. Fuzzy Bottoms. So I did. I sent her a picture of it earlier tonight. She was very excited. So just had to point that out. She also told me to make sure that as soon as we're done tonight, I have to tuck him back in her bed. So don't let me forget that later.
Okay.
So. Yep. All right.
Hey. Super short update.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
The whole Middle East is still trying to have the last word with itself.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And everything the last person said is a reason to either escalate or retaliate. because whoever doesn't speak last loses.
Yeah,
That game means everybody loses, and
pretty much. Yeah.
so yeah, probably in a week or two, things will probably kick off pretty big. U.S. just sent, I don't know, like 10,000, 20,000 more troops. Supposedly to like rotate out some that are there. But it's also a great time to kind of like add more people, add more personnel to the region, and then like, oh, we're just gonna prolong rotating the other ones back in for a minute. Everything's fine. we just need a minute, and then yeah. So, if you know anybody in Lebanon, tell them to leave.
For real, yeah.
Because Israel's about to go dibs on Lebanon as their front porch or something.
Yay.
But guess what, Tommy? Guess what? A lot of people think this is the end times war.
Why do they think that?
Because it doesn't matter if you provoke the attack that like is supposedly the start of the end times war. As long as it starts, there's gonna be a lot of evangelicals. All right, they're gonna be like, "Yay, it's blood time at Israel land at Disney World."
That used to be me. Just like
that's only a little exaggeration.
Yeah.
Like very, very much yay blood time. Like
yeah,
further like Christianity you get.
Yeah, like 20 years ago, maybe less.
Cover me in your blood, Lord Jesus. Cover me in your blood.
Maybe that's what kept me with like fundamentalist Christianity so long. Like it's pretty metal. A lot of the imagery. Oh yeah, which reminds me, I still have yet to send you a like concept photo or whatever. I was wanting Matt to do some art for me because I just was thinking about this idea of Christians seeming to be obsessed with just being covered in the blood of Jesus and all the good things that they think that does for them. But in my mind, it's almost like, I mean, just on top of the just really weird, morbid, messed up imagery that actually is, and like hearkening back to, you know, like ancient like superstitions about blood magic and
blood magic was a huge deal.
Yeah, like I mean, seriously, read some of the Old Testament where it says like, oh, you did something to like made you impure, which is probably just a woman having her period or giving birth to a girl, which made it worse.
But touch you with the magic bloody foreskin.
Yep. Yeah, but then like part of the solution is, and then like kill a dove and sprinkle its blood on an altar, something like if you were just like isolate that, not tell anyone this is in the Bible, but just read this like, yeah, this is an ancient Near East, and like, oh, this is blood magic, like this, it's blood magic.
Remember the witch from Willow? Didn't she like?
It's been forever since I've seen that.
Sprinkle a bird on something.
Probably.
Bird juice.
But yeah, so anyway, so on top of all that imagery, but just the idea of being covered with the blood of Jesus and what that actually means, and like what they say in a positive way is like all the transformation that happens, and they're like, well, this is what your life's going to look like now. But like to me, now looking back on it, just seems so like oppressive and imprisoning and
all right,
restricting. But
have you seen the opening to that just reminded me when you were talking using all of this descriptors, the opening to the show Daredevil. I'm sure you can watch it on just the opening credits. It's it's like super thick, like blood, like running down like New York buildings, and so basically, yeah, and it's all this like dysphoric kind of like music box kind of tone. Yeah, no, that's good. At the end, then it shows like it like dripping down. I think him with his back turned, he's kind of looking like that off to the side.
Yeah.
But no, it's like it's really deep. And when you hear the story, he has like all this guilt and shame because he's Catholic and like nothing's ever good enough that he does. He's a big self judge and
Yeah.
tormented soul.
The best kind. But
Other ones are boring.
What's that?
Other ones are boring.
Oh, other souls. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the
That's why
non-tormented ones, there's like, no, everything's pretty cool, I guess.
That's why God's going to send so many of them to hell, so they'll be more interesting. Which, okay,
You're not
this is
done.
maybe
Get back in there, finish cooking.
Which I realize I'm derailing myself now, but that reminded me of a video I watched recently from Mindshift. He did a long one on the problem of evil, where he was like focusing on a video by the channel I Am Beggar, which and one of the things that so the way this
is that the guy who talks like I'm Beggar, like that guy, or is it somebody else? Is that Hans? Is that just Hans Wormhat?
That might be. I don't know. No, I Am Beggar. He's one of those guys that like he talks real low, but it sounds like he's like really close to the mic like this. So it sounds like he's like literally licking the inside of your ear when he talks. You can hear all the little mouth noises. And
he's trying to be all deep too. So
and like his videos are all
like, why is this like? Why do I feel like this is like his fantasy? Like he's talking to me and I'm locked in his basement. Like why do I feel that's what he's pretending to do?
At least that part, because at least visually, like it's all animated and it's actually all really well done. Like it looks really good. It's just the things he's communicating are kind of bullshit. So that
guy.
But on
totally basement vibe.
Yeah, but on Mindshift, the guy Brandon, when he was talking about his video that he was doing, and the premise of this video was more like, well, if we think we can make a world better, well, let's actually think about that. Like, what kind of world would we make, and how would everything play out that way? And so he, near the beginning of the video, he said something like, if we just made everything so it was like all perfect, like there was no disease, no death, no suffering, and like nothing, everyone just always did exactly what they were supposed to do. And like even like some of the animations actually made it look like a pretty sweet, like utopia looking world.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, well, that can't be the best because that would be boring.
So
and I'm like, okay.
Argument add boredom?
Yeah.
Argument add boredom?
But think about that. He's saying, because he ends up saying, he basically even says at the beginning,
boring, therefore heaven. Like,
because that's something that Brandon like brings up all the time. Is like, well, how is this different than like how God initially created the world and how heaven is? But now you're saying that that's not the best possible. We need to have all the sin and suffering and people choosing to do terrible things. Because he even says at the beginning, like, you're going to agree with me that the world we have is the best that there could be. It's like, we couldn't do any better. It's like, okay. So, and then I saw other people in the comments, and I left one as well saying, okay, so you're saying the way the world is now is better than just everything being perfect except you're bored.
Oh,
it's like,
okay, yeah.
So to go straight there, okay, like what? So that's his message to like the poor little kid who's like starving to death right now is like, well, at least you're not bored. Like, I'll take bored over starving any day, for me and like how many billions of other people. But anyway, so
check your privilege, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that Brandon like kind of hammered is like this whole position of like, well, some bad things just have to happen. Like he said that like that means you must not have experienced anything too terribly tragic, or if you have, you just have so much cognitive dissonance that you're making yourself believe that this had to happen. There's no other way. But so
I think people do kind of pretend that it's not real.
Yeah, so
if I get separated from it.
Ooh, so I'm proud of myself because I thought this was going to be a whole like separate tangent, like sidetrack thing, but this actually ties in very well to where I was actually trying to go with the whole like artwork I want you to do for me about the whole like being covered in blood and how kind of messed up I think that makes you, because this is an example of how that kind of mindset just completely fucks you up. So in my mind, the imagery just went from being like covered or bathed or washed in the blood. Like to me, it just went to being drowned in the blood. Like it was just like oppressive, like flow. So I had this idea,
like it's heavy, kind
yeah,
of thing. Yeah,
and smothering and suffocating and gross, really, in more ways than one.
floppy.
Yeah. So I just had this idea of like me being like chained, like with my arms out like this, but then like above me being a rendition of like Jesus on the cross and all his blood just kind of like pouring down on me, but I'm clearly not happy about it. So call it like drown me in the blood or something. So yeah, I'll get you a picture. Yeah. I'll get you some photos and ideas and stuff as soon as I remember.
You know what? Another good one would be like, oh man, it'd be so messed up.
Hit me.
So the kind of like an impressionist image of somebody being waterboarded with blood.
Ooh. Yep. And call it baptism.
Yeah, that would be. I don't know, maybe something worth doing, but it'd be cool if it's something you couldn't unsee.
Yeah. I like it. Yeah.
Waterboard me in the blood, Jesus.
Or blood. Or I guess blood board me. Ooh. That's pretty. That's pretty brutal.
Oh, but that would be a dark album cover too. Just like a single bloody board stuck in the ground, and nobody around.
Or bloodboarding. That also sounds like either death metal renditions of surf rock or surf rock renditions of death metal songs, or both. It could alternate.
There's that African psychedelic rock that YouTube showed me out of nowhere. Happens a lot to people. Apparently, that's what most of the comments were. It's like, I have no idea why I was shown this, but I really like it.
That's great.
Like African surf guitar. They're kind of it's like surf. They're playing electric guitars like bass and rhythm and lead guitar, but they're playing them like banjos. But it's like banjo surf guitar.
Wow.
With like the regional African kind of beat to it.
That sounds really cool. Yeah.
Jazzy rhythm that kind of like speeds up, slows down, speeds up, slows down, speeds up, slows down.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. But all right, so I have two different music things to talk about, so I might be talk about both. First, so speaking of like death metal surf rock, I did see someone on YouTube made a video demonstrating how black metal without distortion is basically surf rock. So this guy like was literally just straight up playing black metal riffs, but just like without the distortion. And he had like a little of that kind of like surf guitar sound, like with the reverb and the delay and stuff. And he was playing it on a Fender Telecaster, So yeah, it started with like "I Am the Black Wizards" by Emperor. It's like, yep, that's surf rock. But I've discovered this other band recently from New Zealand called Ulcerate. Like, I guess from New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
They're really cool. Like they, I guess it would generally fall under the umbrella of death metal just because it's like dark and heavy and the vocalist growls and there's like blast beats and double bass and stuff. But it's weird, like, because most of the guitar work, like not much of it is actually very intense. It's a lot of like they just play around with a lot of dissonance and like weird like guitar melodies and like it. So it's not like super heavy, but it's just kind of sometimes like a little spacey, a little proggy, maybe even jazzy a little bit. But I mean, it's still metal, but it's not like a lot of time they're just like shredding and just like really tearing into it. Except The drummer, though, like over top of that, relatively, at least, for death metal, relatively chill, like guitar playing is just like going nuts, like doing blast beats and double bass. So it's even like the vocal, it's like he's growling, but even like his growls, it's more of like kind of like an open, like bigger, almost like atmospheric sounding kind of growl. It's not as like aggressive and like fast paced
kind
and
of
all
like
that.
it's an instrument itself, that kind of thing.
A little bit, yeah. So the way I like to think about it, it sounds like, so there's three guys. There's like the vocalist, bass player, a guitarist, and the drummer. So it almost sounds like the two guys like playing like bass and guitar. Like it sounds like they both like when they were like writing songs and playing. They're like, all right, everyone, just like smoke some weed, get chill, play some real cool stuff. But then like the drummer accidentally did cocaine, and he's just like just going ape shit back there. So yeah, it's a really cool combination with all that, because like you hear the guitar melody and it's like and the drummer's like it's like the coolest thing. But yeah, check him out. Ulcerate, my current favorite. So
wait, is he playing surf guitar on drums then? Is that what he's doing?
Ooh.
There have been times where I swear the drummer is playing somebody else's music. Like it's for another instrument. Like the kind of melodic drum playing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Neil Peart.
What band is he in?
He Rush.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he passed away a few years ago though. Yeah.
He would.
Oh shit. Well, I just alienating all our Rush fans out there. So.
I don't know. Was I? No, I don't even know what I meant.
See, I don't know if that almost makes him sound like badass. Like, yeah, he'll die when he's ready.
Yeah. Exit stage me. What does that mean, Neil?
You'll find out. Anyway, so anything else we wanted to distract ourselves with before we get on to the main topic, and we can distract ourselves from there?
All right. Well, I should say that I blame the three body problem. I started watching it.
Ah, okay.
Tommy, you should watch it as well.
Okay. And what is it on?
It's on Netflix.
Okay.
But we can make that happen. And it's a combination of religion, science fiction, aliens? I guess aliens. I mean, definitely not from Earth, but
mm-hmm.
It is it's based on a Chinese author's like internationally acclaimed book that I had never heard of by the same name, I think. Well, in Chinese. All right, so it's based on the idea, the three body problem. I'm not going to get into the series very much, but the three body problem is kind of like a philosophy and science problem. And if in a solar system that has three suns, three stars, the movement of the stars and therefore the planets around those stars is predictable in the short term, but utterly unpredictable long term. Or the further long term out you get, the more unreliable your guesses are about where things will be, because it's not. It's there's like a layer of chaos built into the way the things move. It's not like a regular orbit where you can be like, oh, the moon will be here again tomorrow. Like right there, we know where it's gonna be because it always does the same thing. It weirdly goes around the Earth in about a perfect circle, which is suspicious.
Yeah,
everything else is
a little sus.
Yeah, no, really, it is. It might be hollow. That sounds bad shit, but fucker rings like a bell when they crash shit into it. It's like it rang for like an hour. They hit it with a lunar landing module. And they kind of went whatever the super low frequency of bong is.
So it sounded like Meshuggah.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
All right, 3-body problem. Impossible to predict long term where the planets are going to be, where the stars are going to be. Also, it's like reality kind of has 3 parts, and we don't know where we are.
Huh.
So we kind of have like a 3-body existence problem. Like you can break down existence into like 3 parts that all need each other. So there's like physical reality, there's consciousness, and then there's interaction. And you can't have existence without those 3 things. There has to be something to interact with, the interaction, and the observer interacting with the things.
Yeah.
You take away any one of those 3, and you have nothing, basically. Well, where's the everything?
Yeah.
We like measure things in science or just in regular, day to day, like something where something is in relation to something else. But where are those 2 things? Okay, well, they're in relation to that. We know where they are. But then you scale it up, and you're like, where is everything? And people talking about the UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomena, and its shorthand is just the phenomenon. And like this is the phenomenon. Life is the phenomenon. Like that's part of it. Like non-human stuff. But like, what is this phenomenon?
Do. Sorry. Phenomenon. Do. Yeah. Yeah, it's. Yeah.
And everybody has their own story of how reality is going. It's their experience. And we tend to assume that the reality that we see is the same one everybody else is looking at. But it isn't, because like their story has different good guys and different bad guys. And like I'm the bad guy in at least one person's story. I know that. Or a bad guy. But I'm not a bad guy.
That wasn't me saying. That wasn't me saying. Yeah, my story. I'm just saying. No, me too. I'm sure. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, because it's and not even just in a like kind of like conceptual, like conscious, experiential sense, but also just in a very like literal, material sense. Like the photons that are entering my eyes, causing the things I see, are different than the ones entering yours or anyone else's eyes. Like the air pressure that is entering my ear canals and interacting with my eardrum is different than the air, like the sound waves that are interacting with everyone else's. Like same with like what I'm touching and feeling and smelling, tasting, all the things. Now it seems like we've at least been able to work things out and find enough commonality to where things can be at least somewhat predictable as far as like how other people are perceiving things. But
it's the commonality, like like that's how we have an understanding of what's real. And science started out kind of like as a religious philosophy, where religion had stories, trying to figure out how the world worked, and so you had a story. And when a story stopped being useful or stopped being helpful to make sense of the world, you adjusted the story. And depending on what region you are in the world, the story looked certain ways based on your experience of your town all the way up to the universe. And then at some point, I think probably around the Enlightenment, we started trying to nail it down to like an applied philosophy, like kind of like a science, like do this, then this happens, and here are the things we do, here are the things we don't do, and it stopped being about um, what's the best story that explains everything. Uh, and then we
Yeah.
got all into science, kind of turned religion into a science, and it
Tried
looks
to.
like
Yeah.
the only way to really describe what's happening with the phenomena stuff is um, like it's a reality layered over ours, and we
Hmm.
can we see the stuff that is enough like our reality that we can perceive it. Like our brain knows what the hell to do with the imagery. Like
Hmm.
the physics are close enough for something. Um, but really, I was just trying to make sense of how people can see political things so differently. Like how somebody can see Donald
Yeah.
Trump as like uh, can
Hmm.
actually believe that he's like a good husband and a good father, and he's
Yeah.
done quite a bit to
To-
indicate otherwise.
yeah. Yeah.
And so there's facts, and then there's like narrative around facts.
Hmm.
And narrative is helpful because it helps us like fill in the gaps when we have something we
Hmm.
can't wrap our brain around.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
but
for sure.
narratives aren't what's really happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
This
I think.
like reality is the story we tell ourselves is true. We've all kind of
Hmm.
agreed on similar stories, and when somebody doesn't have the same story, we're like that person's crazy.
Yeah. Or yeah, we come up with
Or they're an alien.
names. Hmm. Or they're like possessed by a demon or something.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
But
Or
here's
they've
the
been
thing.
or they've been
In that
deceived.
in
Yeah.
that person's head though, the person who's saying that it's a demon or they're deceived, like that's the reality in their head. Like that's true to them.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and so that their life is as if that's true. So they'll
Right.
see demons and and just kind of like what version of reality do you want to be dialed into? Or what layer of reality do you want to dial into? Like dial into. Um,
Hmm.
it's been helpful for me to look at things like, all right, so this is happening in my day, and I feel yuck about it, and uh, like, oh, how can I feel better when this is happening? And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, what's the other version of what's happening right now? Like, what's the like parallel reality version of what's happening where like this is a better moment? And then I'm like, oh, that's a better reality. I'll take that one. Because the facts are the same. It's just the story about them is different.
Hmm. So what do you mean by that as far as like a parallel reality? I mean, are you thinking of a just completely different situation, or are you thinking of another aspect of the situation that's actually happening, or just a different way to look at it? What exactly do you mean by that?
The narrative, like who's the victim, who's the if I'm being a victim, is there a version of how this plays out where I'm not the victim?
Yeah.
Um, because all that is just my perception of what's happening, and
Hmm. Okay.
so like depression is kind of like, well, this is happening, so how could I not feel depressed about it? Like that's just how I feel. Like yeah, but I'm also feeling other things at the same time. What am I feeling about this that is happier? Or,
Hmm.
you know what I mean?
Okay.
Because there's that one feeling
Yeah.
program running in our head. There's like
Hmm.
countless other things, old programs running that this experience reminds us of. And so that's all running in the background. And so if I can grab one of those programs that's running, or it reminds me of something helpful, or whatever it is that gets me out of this situation, um, Yeah, there's all kinds of different stuff happening. We can just grab it and go with it to some degree. I'm not saying you can like doesn't change instantly how I feel, but it I know it really does help.
Mm,
Because yeah, consciousness is
mm,
just I feel like consciousness is kind of a it's like its own world. Because there are molecules just moving
mm,
around doing molecule things, and electrons being in probable places, not really anywhere in particular,
mm, mhm.
and somehow solids.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, unless this is something that I
I'll
think,
pick a probability that works better because that's also
mm,
happening right now.
right. Yeah. Because this is something I think about a lot. So it's basically, unless you're like, the Deepak Chopra types that think like literally everything is conscious, like how much of
That
the
might be
history,
true, but he's also kind of crap.
yeah. Um, 'Cause one of my favorite moments, like it was, I don't remember if it was a debate or just other kind of discussion. I remember it involved a Sam Harris. So
I think it was
it,
a debate.
it was awesome. Well, I think it was, I don't know if this, I think it was, there was supposed to be like a discussion on like, the future of God or the future of religion or whatever.
Like a mediated kind of discussion.
Yeah. And it had Sam Harris and Michael Shermer. They were like the two atheists. And then there was Deepak Chopra and another lady. Sorry, I forget her name. Like I'd never heard of her before, but I know she was like the daughter of some other famous comedian, and I can't even
Oh,
remember
good.
which one it was. But to me, it was almost like maybe there's just something about. Like I said, I'd never heard of her, but I guess I was a little unclear as to why she was on the discussion. I mean, but anyway, so you had Deepak, doing his usual spiel about like just saying words like quantum and energy, but not in the ways like actual scientists use those words. Though I guess he might be an actual scientist, I guess technically. But so, and I remember like Harris and Shermer were like pushing him on that. It's like you keep throwing out these words like quantum and like you talking about these things, but it's like it seems like these things are not what you're actually talking about them as. And like so they had like an audience like Q&A thing, and so like an actual like quantum physicist like came up to the mic and basically told Deepak like, yeah, I mean, the way you're using these terms, like I'd love to actually have a conversation with you to actually explain them to you, because it sounds like you have no idea what you're talking about. So, that was an awesome moment. But yeah, so but unless you're like on that end saying like, well, everything is conscious, or I don't know if, because I only very surfacely know about like the whole like panpsychism theory about like consciousness is like fundamental, but I've also heard him say that doesn't necessarily mean everything is conscious. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly how that works. But so
uh,
basically,
I, I think what they, from what I understand, what they're getting at is everything is on a sliding scale, like gradient. Like everything has a level of consciousness. But and this is what consciousness looks like when it's an ape on Earth. Like,
hmm, hmm, yeah.
um,
So, but I guess so. Whether you think about it as like, so maybe just okay, if you think about it as a person like me who's like, okay, conscious beings have only existed, whether it's here on Earth or any other planets, where like that basically from what we know of the history of the cosmos, at least from the Big Bang, because before the Big Bang, like who the fuck knows? Not us. Um, First of all, just whether or not Earth was the first planet to have conscious beings, but at least from what we know, there at least was only a certain period of time in the universe's history where life to this level was even possible at any point. And from what they're like kind of extrapolating out, like it's going to be such a small, like minuscule portion of the history of the cosmos. So basically, that just means like most of reality that was or will be seems like will be completely unobserved by anything conscious. And it's like, to me, that's just like crazy. And also just to think of the fact that what if like consciousness never even developed at all? Then that means all of reality would have happened for like billions and billions and billions and billions of years, but there would have been nothing conscious to know it. It just would have
Everything
happened.
has, but even like quantum particles have some. They have a level of awareness. You know, like that, like crystalline structures develop because there's kind of a particle is aware when there's another particle that it can join with. Not in what we would call awareness, but like something plays out,
Hmm.
and so there's something to observe. There's an observer, and there's the act of observing, and there can't be anything at all unless those things are happening. Um, but so we have to change what we. I think so. I think we have to change what we think of as an observer. It doesn't have to be somebody with eyes and a brain and consciousness. It could be um, another particle level of awareness of another particle
Mm.
next to them,
Mm.
because they'll interact a particular way. So
Right.
they're
Hmm.
aware of each other's existence, whatever that means. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all
Now, are you talking like in a similar way to where like an oxygen molecule might be like aware of a couple hydrogen molecules because of how they bond, like that kind of level of thing, or is this something?
like when this thing is over there, I go over there. Like there's not a decision made. That's just what happens. You know?
Hmm. Kind of like how gravity works? It's like, or is this? Are you talking more like on like the quantum level? Like,
Well, gravity might be the interaction. Like gravity might be core to
yeah,
existence. Like without
hmm,
gravity, nothing exists
yeah,
because that is the interaction between particles
hmm,
or charge. Um,
yeah,
Gravity is starting to look like it needs spin as well to cause more gravity
hmm,
because every anti-gravity thing that gets tested has to do with rotating disks, liquid mercury rotating within a torus shape. Uh,
hmm.
so yeah, spin is an important part of it somehow, which makes sense because everything in the solar system has a decent amount of gravity spins to some degree.
Yeah, it's true. What was that? Wasn't that in like 2001: A Space Odyssey? Like that spaceship like had to be like
Still
spinning
this.
to like simulate gravity or something. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the ring. That's
Hmm.
more centripetal force.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because they were like kind of walking on the outside. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. But I guess that wasn't exactly a documentary, but
No, the three
they
body
are.
problem is mind bending. It's you can't watch it and not reflect deeply on something you hadn't before,
Mm,
or at least in a particular way. Um,
interesting.
there was one scene that I did not watch, and if you watch it, you'll. I covered my face because I was like, nope, I don't. I don't need to see this to know how dark this is.
All right. Yeah, so I have to check that out because like because as far as like 2001: A Space Odyssey, have you actually seen that?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I watched it years ago. Like I remember my reaction after watching the whole thing. It's like this entire movie is made up of the parts of movies I don't pay attention to. It's just like, I mean, you have the famous opening scene, like with the monkeys and like hitting stuff, and also Brock Zarathustra playing in the background, and like the big monolith thing. But then from there, it was just like my brain just like kept waiting for something to happen,
Yeah, he really just shows
waiting.
life happening in that story. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
all relevant, it would seem.
yeah. So it's like after the monkey thing, it's like my brain checked out and then just never checked back in. But yeah,
So, I think reality is what
anyway,
most of us agree it is.
yeah.
That, but there's other levels, I think, of perception where, um, remember the guy from like 182 that you never listened to, that band? The lead singer, Tom DeLonge.
Yeah, yeah.
Or DeLonge,
I
if
don't
you
actually know.
if you're
Yeah.
nasty. He had a UFO experience, and he
Yeah.
went a little bit nutty for a minute, and then um, now he has like a legit foundation, and he's in touch with like government types, and a
Hmm.
giant 3-part book series called God's Man and War, and it kind of seems like religions started up as a way to explain other levels of reality. Some of it was scientific stuff we didn't understand, and then there were other parts
Hmm.
where um, there's something. I think there's something. I would say deeper, but that sounds woo. Uh,
Maybe a bit.
there are other things going on that we're not aware of directly, and I think religion helps make sense of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the particular religion that matters; it's the story that makes sense of life. And it's not that the story is true. The story is kind of like a life hack to make sense of
Mm.
large systems that are playing out. Um,
Yeah.
like there's got to be like something more conscious than people. What does that mean? Or
Mm.
better awareness, or
Yeah. Or or even something like beyond conscious. Because like this is my
right? Yeah,
this is
we only
like
know
obviously
what
like
our kind
my
is like.
right, like my very again like very like novice unprofessional view of things. Like, but the way I kind of like the way things kind of happen, like okay, so like we have matter comes from like certain things in the universe create matter. Certain matter organizes itself into like molecules. Certain molecules organize itself into something that we call life, and certain life develops something that we call consciousness. So for me, it's like, okay, then like, where does it go from there? Like, okay, now what? Some things that have consciousness, like, what else can they develop? It's like,
I think it means you merge with your technology because we've been trying to do that ever since we've been able to make shit.
yeah, but I guess the way I put it is like, if I'm thinking of something that we might not even be able to comprehend or even say what it is, because I mean,
Yeah,
can
yeah.
matter because can matter that is not life comprehend life, and is life that is not conscious can't comprehend consciousness. So life that is conscious, what is there that we can't even comprehend? That is like whatever like the next step is, or so yeah. That thinking about that just like fascinates me and entertains my little brain for long times.
I maybe it's ideas. Ideas
Hmm.
behave like trapped animals when they get cornered and they're about to die.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
cultural ideas, you know. We're watching
Hmm.
like American conservatism. Basically,
Right.
conservatism all over the planet is starting to uh,
Yeah.
realize the future already happened and they weren't prepared. And
Yeah. Well,
so
it's.
let's stop the clock and everybody
Hmm.
let's be fascist and
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Well, it's because like even though like what we call conservative today is very different than what we would have called conservative,
it's
100,
neoliberal
500,
basically. Yeah,
yeah, 500,000 years ago. but it's like every generation's conservative. It seems like in their brains, and sometimes in a very literal sense, just speaking from what we're more familiar with, the conservative Christian evangelical fundamentalist biblical literalist, like evolution just isn't a thing.
I was there for a minute,
But
yeah.
yeah, I was there for a lot of minutes. Too many. But it's like that's literally part of their worldview is the way things are is the way they have always been. So therefore, if at any point we find a thing that works, that's what we need to stick with forever because things don't change.
And clearly God blessed it. So we
Right.
stick with what he blesses until like we're really sure we just fucked everything up with this, and then we'll change it.
Mm-hmm.
But then
Yeah.
it's too late because you've already screwed everything up.
Yeah. So for instance, even things
also,
like
today's conservative is tomorrow's villain. That's what I'm thinking.
Or and the way like things have started to move so quickly, they're even in some cases becoming today's villains too, which is
it's getting real sped up.
Good and bad.
I'm all right with it.
Yeah, I mean, at least for the aspect of it that means it's getting exposed for what it is more quickly, and then we can hopefully move beyond it more quickly.
Right.
Yeah. Hopefully. But
it seems like it'd be better if it went. I don't know. Do you want it faster, or do you want it to take 3 decades? I don't know.
Yeah. Right. I mean, also, admittedly, it's easy for us to say as, straight, white, cis, hetero men. Seems like our the only disadvantage that we have anymore is that we're like atheists or just not Christian, basically.
Well, I don't think we can do anything about it. I mean, it has like all of the past momentum behind it. Like all we can do is like lean on the bus a little bit as it goes past. Like,
yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is like if like fascism or whatever like comes more quickly. I mean, yes, it might be like in the long run better for it to like what you were talking about, like happen quickly so everyone sees it for what it is. So it's not like that whole like frog slowly being boiled to death thing, which apparently isn't actually a thing that like.
But it's a great analogy.
Yeah. Because I mean, it works in so many other ways. Like, but just realizing in the meantime, it's definitely going to suck a lot more for people who don't look like us.
Oh no! Here's the thing.
And I know you're not like insensitive to that, but I just wanted to make sure we're.
I'll just here's a different way for me to put it out there. Like the faster it happens, the more of a scattershot it's going to be. Okay, they might have like a real specific plan, but they're going to try to do a lot at once, and you can't. In game theory and stuff, we can't win a battle or a game that way. Like that's how Russia's been fighting in Ukraine. They've been like, oh, let's just, I don't know, try to move the whole front at once, guys. Let's do that. That'll be great. And but no, you need to like form a wedge, get in there, and then spread out. And so what I'm concerned is if the next thing that happens in a country's development is that the country goes more fascist and then turns around whenever their population is like, whoa, I don't want that. Depending on each culture, it takes a little longer or less longer. So if it happens fast, you can see it happening better. If it happens slow, like, oh, you just give up those freedoms a little bit, and then like, oh, you can be trans, but just don't like tell anybody about it, and like stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. Well, that bullshit. Yeah, because that's.
If we can tell you're trans, oh my gosh, it's just way bad.
Or even if you're not actually trans, but we just think you are because you're a female boxer who apparently looks too masculine. Even.
Why is it the people who don't believe in evolution behave the most like animals? Like the most tribal, the most monkey out of the bunch.
Yeah.
Girl must be girl, boy must be boy, penis, vulva. We'll call it vagina because we don't understand, but it's really vulva.
Yeah.
And Also, how gross is it? How gross is it that dudes name females' genitalia as uh, the inside? Named it by its
Yeah.
inside. Like, just naming it is a little, like, rapey. Because you're like, no, not the part we can see, the inside. We'll name it after that. Like,
Yeah.
Grandpa, shut up. You died.
Well, I mean, it goes back to, I mean, at least in like our story, I mean, it goes back to Genesis. I mean, man literally named the woman. I mean, this was something that was pointed out. I want to say it was by Emma Thorne. Oh
Maybe
boy.
God is a dude because he had Adam just basically bone Eve into existence.
Literally both.
He literally boned Eve into existence.
Okay. Now, real quick on that with the whole like Eve coming from his rib, now this is a very personal, like kind of vendetta thing I'm saying right now, even though the person that's the reason I'm bringing this up will probably never actually hear this.
I
But
don't
I
know where
know
this is going at all.
but I know that this is a widely spread thing. Like, so my dad, who's a retired doctor, so he knows a lot about the human body and stuff. So, and I know this wasn't something he
He's
came
been
up
in
with.
a person or two.
He was a pathologist, so he's done autopsies. So yes, that's
Right. Just at least wrist deep in lots of people, Tommy.
Mhm.
Lots
Oh
of
yeah.
dead people.
Yep. But the way he put it is because like he didn't just do autopsies, like he also did biopsies or like what the way he put it, and I love this, is he said, the amount of you that I see is inversely proportionate to how well you're doing. He says, like, if I'm seeing a small part of you, you'll probably be fine. And if I'm seeing all of you, that means you're dead. And the whole spectrum in between. So, which I thought was a fantastic way to put that. But anyway, so and again, I'm probably also sensitive to this, like, because not only have I heard him say this, but he said this to my kids. So
Oh, fun.
there's
That's my
this,
favorite.
and I've corrected it with them, and apparently I've done it so often they told like I brought it up recently. He's like, Dad, you've already told us this like 20 times. I'm like, good. So this is a thing that like a lot of creationists like will say like, oh, because I guess there's something about like in like the bone marrow, it has like all the stem cells or whatever that you can like create like there's probably more technical terms to this, but essentially a layman's version of it, at least as far as the understanding that he was explaining was, I guess in the cells in the bone marrow, there's enough stem cells that you can make an entire person from it. So that was them saying,
Probably,
oh,
yeah.
see the writers of the Bible knew that, and that like they could have only got that information from God, because how are they going to have that all that knowledge? So that's just how like God expressed that idea. It's like, no, the reason that Genesis says that Eve was made from a rib is because it was taking it from the even older Sumerian myth about the goddess. I always get the names. I think it was the goddess Enlil, taken from the rib of Enki.
Maybe.
It's
I don't
it's
remember
it's
the
not
names.
it's not Enlil, but anyway, but there's an even older story about this god who, and it was actually multiple body parts like that were taken from him, but there was like from his rib, like this woman goddess was made. So it was like that's what they were referring to. It's not, yeah, because
Isn't that weird? Can
anyway,
you imagine being alive then, right? And you know that like a person is a person and does the people thing when all the parts are arranged in the right places. But you move those parts around and the person doesn't work anymore. And and
right? Mm-hmm.
like the kind of magic that's there with that. And it is, I don't know, it kind of feels, I think our intuitive understanding of that, it does just have a magical feel to it. Like we aren't just
Yeah.
our brain, we are the accumulation of all the cells in our body. Like all the sensations we feel and experience
Oh yeah.
in any particular moment, it's the cumulative effect and experience of all of us. And so, like, this is me pointing at my hand. Like, I can say this is me and it's part of me. Both those things are correct, but it's not That's not just me.
Right.
In my hand.
Right. Oh yeah, exactly.
Ah, oh, damn it! I
But
had this thing that I thought of before, and I just lost it again.
well, that's all right. I was actually distracting myself from another point I was getting to, but let me get back to this whole thing. But the thing with the rib, so apparently by this like fundamentalist creationist view, like they knew enough about like stem cells and how like human anatomy works to know that in the bone marrow you could make an entire person, but they apparently didn't know that the sky was actually not a hard dome and all the stars were just lights that were stuck in it, and that
Yeah,
when
and
it
the dome
rained, like
holds back the
door,
waters.
yeah, and
Coming through a door, and that's how we have rain.
yeah, so I guess God gave them some like super secret knowledge, but not in other
And
areas.
also gay people are bad. Dome, earth on pillars, turtles all the way down. Stars let in the rain from the dome. God is also like in the waters, maybe in the like. But the lights are in the water too, or maybe they're beyond the water. But also, gay people are bad. Like, and then people look back today and they're like, right, that was clearly nuts. The dome thing. Gay people being bad, sure, that makes absolute sense.
Mm-hmm.
Women talking in church, now they can talk in church. Can they lead things? It depends where you are.
Yeah, so that was like a super awkward moment for me. Like, so when we lived in Columbus for a little while, see, and this is how these non-denominational churches get you.
Non-denominational.
Yeah, non-denominable. So we joined this church, like it was like really good. That so, but we eventually found out it's like, oh, these people are basically just undercover Baptists. So, because I remember we were in a small group and like we're
No, that's legit.
We've been in it like for months at time. Like they were great people. We were like good friends and everything. Like, oh, this is great. But I remember one night, one of the ladies in the group, like she was like part of the worship team, and I guess sometimes she actually led worship. And so she asked. So one night we were discussing some things, and she just put a question out for the group. She's like, so basically just asking like what we thought, because she was thinking about like, is me being a worship leader, is that me like leading, like, and talking about like what like Paul was saying to Timothy, like didn't allow women to be like an authority. She's basically just asked us, so what do you guys like think about that? So I thought this was like, okay, total open discussion, whatever. And I think I was like even like the first person to talk, and I just said something that like, oh, I don't think there's a problem with like women being in leadership at church. I think that's great, or like something like that, just real brief. And I remember she gave me this look like, oh, okay. Like she didn't really respond. Yeah. But then like someone else like immediately jumped in and so everyone else started talking in terms of, oh, clearly women aren't supposed to be leaders in church. So let's make sense of how your role actually isn't wrong. And
right. Yeah.
And this was like relatively early on in the evening, and I noticed like, and so immediately I was like, oh,
for sexism.
And the hilarious thing is like for the rest of the night, no one spoke to me at all. I literally just sat there silent the rest of the night. It's like, oh, I guess I said a wrong thing.
Yep.
No, the next week it was fine. Like it was like, it's not like anyone like excommunicated me or anything. But yeah, for that night, the rest of the evening was pretty awkward for me.
Yeah. But, see, it's not so much that it's okay if they're in leadership. It's just kind of, sometimes there aren't enough dudes to be leaders. There aren't enough good dude leaders. And so the women have to be, like in World War II, mm-hmm. where the women like manufactured things, and the men came back, and the men are like, "Yeah, we'll take our jobs from you, ladies. Yeah, thanks for barely making shit, for us to fly in the war." And
hope it didn't. Yeah.
Put those muscles that you made with the rivet gun, put those to work at carrying babies around. Just maybe borrow babies, because you got all those muscles. Just like,
it's like
you can muscle.
Like you didn't period bleed all over our manufacturing equipment, did you? That's gross.
I heard a funny thing on. All right, so they're calling Tim Walz on the right. Like Trump is trying to get the name Tampon Tim to stick.
Yeah, that's.
I heard a funny thing on the Majority Report, which I recommend. It's like lefty talk radio, but with facts and opinions based on things.
What?
And they're talking about like They were all going around the room in the studio, like confessing, like all the dudes are confessing how close they've come to a tampon in their past. Like the lead guy on the show, he was like, I must admit that sometime in my past, I am sure that I purchased tampons for a woman. And then the female host is like, and you touched them? He's like, well, I of course I touched the box. He's like, but I can't say that I haven't actually handed a tampon to a woman before. And she's like, it's amazing you're fine. And he's like, I know. He goes there, but before the grace of God. And he's Jewish, so that's fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
And then they're like, Matt, he's like, you grew up in a house full of women. Like, how are you even alive still? Because that's absurd. Also, it's a straw man, but nobody's like, nobody's saying that it's just the proximity to the tampons that are gonna, turn boys trans or whatever. But
right.
Weirdly, that's the argument they seem to be making, even though it isn't what they really want to say. Really, what they want to say is we don't like trans people, and we think that we should categorize people by the genitals, not being weird. Just you are your genitals.
Yeah, but sometimes they'll even be as bold as to say, well, if you're XY, that's a male. But then they'll also say like, and it's your genitals and it's whatever. But not realizing that there are such a thing as, and I think from what I heard, this was the case of that female boxer.
It actually wasn't. I found out, but that was more Russian agency group lie thing.
Okay, but that is a thing where there are like people who, like, if you just look at them, you would say, okay, that is clearly a woman. Like their body like completely looks what we think of as female, but they also have a Y chromosome. Because like here's the thing, I don't know if enough people understand. It's not like there's nothing magic about the Y chromosome that just automatically grows a dick and balls. No. Like there's a whole chain of things that has to happen. Like the Y chromosome is like, I don't know if that's like the start, but that's just like one step in it. Okay, then the Y chromosome has to actually interact with other things to form the body. And there's so many things on down the line where if any point that chain gets cut off by whatever, then it just doesn't happen. But the person still has a Y chromosome. But like there have even been like XY females who like have gotten pregnant and given birth because they also had a uterus and vagina, vulva, the whole package. But
we can only hope.
Yeah, but this goes back to the whole like that conservative mindset of this is how things are, this is how things have always been, and like this is how things need to stay. Kind of thing. Like they just have this super, and it's not just as far as like sex and gender, but just a super binary viewpoint on so many things, but like without realizing like
binary thinking will fuck you up.
Yeah, and which also something I learned recently. Speaking of the Y chromosome, apparently, like scientists are saying, like eventually the Y chromosome in humans will probably disappear.
Yeah,
because I guess that actually already has happened in other species. I don't remember exactly. It was some kind of mammal, like a rodent, maybe. But
do they still have the male-female binary with?
I don't remember exactly how they adapted to it, but yeah, something happened, and
there would have to be. Still, I mean, unless something drastic changes with the plumbing.
Yeah, like I said, like people can look that up if they want. I don't remember enough of the specifics to say anything about it, but yeah, but just that idea of even what we think we know, like, is not permanent, and like because things are changing, like on that level, the biological level, but even just like on the like. I don't know what you want to call it, like bigger scale, larger scale, more surface, but not really. But just the like
zooming out and zooming in
on the just on the cultural level, like just how whatever we are biologically, even just how we interact with people. Like, so for instance, like, conservatives these days, particularly Christian conservatives, will talk about, well, we believe in like traditional biblical marriage. It's like, have you read the Bible? Like the way I like to put it is like, don't talk to me about biblical marriage if you don't know your daughter's worth in goats.
Yeah. Also,
So,
kind of like marriage in the Old Testament. I mean, there was a ritual around it,
mhm.
and but still, it was more like if you poke it, you own it. Like that's
Yeah, because and like literally own it, because that was the thing. Like women, the wives were considered property. That's why in the 10th commandment people are wanting to post in schools now. Like it says, when it says you shall not covet, it says shall not covet your neighbor's wife, and then lists a whole other bunch of other property, like their servants, their animals, their house. Never says husband though. But and even like from what I understand, even in ancient Hebrew, there wasn't even, at least as we know it, there wasn't even a word for husband and wife. It was like your man and your woman. So like it wasn't. So when you talk about a certain woman, it's like the way we would say she's your wife. Like you would say, oh, this is my woman. Like that's literally what they were saying. I mean, that's where like the whole like what we currently have with the whole like engagement ring like custom, like that's a holdover from, oh, I'm buying you. Only now instead of giving it to her father, we're at least giving it to the woman, so that's better, you know. But
and it's supposed
yeah,
to be like traditionally, well, newer tradition is it should be a diamond, but like diamonds are only valuable because the diamond cartel from De Beers locks all of them up. Like they're super cheap. It's a clear stone.
mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah,
there were
no,
like diamond fields in Africa where they're just like laying on the ground. Like that's why they were called diamond fields. There were more if you dug down. They were just like strewn about. There was not a small amount of them.
right,
They're like, how
right.
do we take this thing that's super cheap and sell it for a lot more? Tell people it's valuable because it's rare, and it's rare because we have all of it. And like, don't you want this clear thing that looks like glass? It sparkles better than glass,
It'll cut glass,
therefore better.
right? Yeah. So, but yeah. So okay. So here's something I was getting to. I don't know how long ago. But speaking of the whole like what we consider, the traditional like family structure, even though like much to the Christians' chagrin, like what they think of as traditional biblical marriage is absolutely nothing like marriage was anywhere in the Bible. Um, but
it's a white colonial version of marriage.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah, pretty
She's
much.
not your slave, but she's your indentured servant because her skin is white. And if your wife is black and she's your wife, and it's like, well, now that gets confusing, says JD Vance.
That poor guy. He's confused by so many things. But
How can
this
he
was
say such racist things with a wife from India? Made a curry racist reference. He's like, I don't care, if somebody's using curry or fried chicken in their kitchen. It's like, dude, you just used like 2 dog whistles for the vice president of the United States, and I know, fucker, I know your armpits smell like curry, you bitch. Like, like you had curry
fuck.
on Sunday. Shut up.
Yay, Ohio.
Emo JD Vance with his fucking eyeliner. That I like to believe he wears eyeliner and fucks couches. It's not true, but it looks like it's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He looks like he's
Yeah.
wearing eyeliner. I just want that to be the thing. Like I just want to get. I'm please let that be the next thing he responds to publicly.
Yeah.
I'm not wearing eyeliner. I'm just naturally beautiful.
Oh, come on, people. I mean, come on. If it walks like a duck, fucks a couch like a duck, it's a couch fucker.
came out as trans in the future, it's never gonna happen. But if he did, like you'd be like, in that picture, isn't he a happier person? Don't you picture him as happier? And that,
Hmm. Oh yeah. So I hope for that. So I pray for that for JD Vance.
I mean,
That
he is his own beard. Come on.
oh, that's to me is the one. I was about to say redeeming quality, but it's not actually a redeeming quality because it's nowhere near enough to make up for all the rest of it. But just the fact that he has a beard, because that's been something I've been saying for years that we need to get back into the presidency is quality facial hair. Like we just have not had in
Right. But
like
he
over
cuts
a
it, he trims it
century.
so low. And so from the side, it's like, dude, why is your double chin wearing a beard? Like,
Yeah, but like I said, but it's a step.
oh
It's a
no,
step.
it's a step, and
Yeah.
it's clearly on purpose. And I think it's because he's
Hmm.
matching like the two diagonal lines. But
Mm.
you don't have much of a chin, right? And you include neck beard in with your beard,
I don't know what that's like.
it makes your chin disappear. You know, like
Hmm.
like when like your beard first starts growing out, right?
Hmm.
Like for a minute there, it's just like, oh, he's got a fuzzy neck, and then it becomes mouth. Like I, that's kind of what mine does too.
Yeah. But
Anyway, that
anyway,
was a tangent.
what? So yeah. So as far as the whole family structure thing and how we kind of view like what we have as well, this is what we've always had, even though it like very clearly isn't the way we've always structured things. But so I remember, so going back to like the small group we used to be in, we were talking about the whole like Black Lives Matter movement.
Oh, fun.
And I remember saying like how we like yes we agree with like a lot of the things. We're like okay yes Black lives do matter. Like we definitely you know want to end racism and all the terrible things that were happening, especially around then, like with the whole especially like cops seeming to kill more of the like non-white community, particularly black, but I mean other non-whites as well, like at a higher rate and for worse reasons or no reason at all. But anyway, so like, yeah, we're on board on that. But I remember in that discussion, like, people were even saying that, yeah, but there are just certain things about like the actual like Black Lives Matter movement, like we just feel like as Christians or whatever, we can't get on board with. And one of the things was like, yeah, they like don't believe in like the nuclear family. And like, I don't know if
Who
this is
said
even
that?
true or not, but
Who
something
said
like,
that?
what's that?
Who said that?
The one who brought it up was actually the at this point the one African American member of the group. Um,
He said that. They don't believe the
mhm.
nuclear family.
What's that?
They don't believe the nuclear family. Like that.
Well, I guess not necessarily. I don't even remember what it was, but there was something that, like I said, I didn't actually look this up, but at least they were saying there was something in the official like BLM platform or whatever, as
Something
it
about
were.
single moms being all right, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, or just basically saying like in order to like raise up a child, it doesn't need to be in like the like traditional nuclear family model. Like maybe they were addressing the notion that like in like the black community, like there are a lot of like or
Yeah.
like perceived to be. I don't know what the actual numbers are, so if I'm
No, it's
way
accurate.
off,
There's
like, but maybe
children out
like
of
if
wedlock is higher.
yeah. So, but they're saying basically just any way to raise a child. Like if their father's in the picture, great. But if not, there are other ways to raise a child, like with
This
the
is true, and
community.
this is how
Yeah.
you are resilient and
Yeah. So, but like, so the problem with this was like, no, we need to be like pushing like nuclear family, like father, mother. It's like, okay, yeah, that's great if you can make it work. But if not, then you make something else work. It doesn't need to look like that because like the way maybe like 'cause again this goes back to maybe at a certain point in human history like yes that was the ideal thing because
Mhm.
that's all that we could manage and that's all we could make work but now it's like yeah a child can be raised without a mother and father and still turn out fine the
In
way
fact,
we've
like
structured yeah
we need to like we need to like find better ways to make that work. Like
Yeah. I mean,
healthy kids in general. Let's just do that.
yeah. I mean, and I love to use like these people as an example. I mean, I won't name them because I don't have their permission, but friends we know, two moms, it's a lesbian couple raising two kids like that like went to school with my kids, and they were like not only like, yeah, the two moms, like awesome people, super great, and their kids for lots of reasons, like they were like not at all what like the conservative Christians would have you think. Oh, the children not raised with the father and the mother, they're going to turn out like all kinds of mess ups. Like no, they're like fantastic kids because they have fantastic parents. It like it doesn't need to be a man and a woman. Just they are raised by fantastic people. They are going to be fantastic people. That's so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, this whole idea that it has to be this.
Putting principles over people.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, because let's be honest, we've known
That's
a
when the
lot
search
of.
for truth gets terrible. That's when it gets sinister.
Mm-hmm.
That's when
Yeah,
you
because
assume, yeah.
yeah, let's be honest. We can both probably think of like some like biological fathers of children that it may or may not actually be a good thing that they're in their children's lives as much
Are
as
you
they are.
thinking of the same person I am?
I'm sure I am.
Yeah. I heard stories and I was like, huh, 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 huh. Uh, I think I might. Well, I don't know. What's a violent intervention like?
Just an ass kicking. That's
But what do you do when the person would when that wouldn't get through? Like their version of reality is different enough that like they really are the only good guy.
I'm sending you a thing in the private chat just to make sure we are thinking of the same person.
Ooh. Yep.
Okay, just making sure. All right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
people, the child protective services in Ohio are some bullshit. Um, it is. It's too hard. It's too hard for the wrong reasons to get kids away from a parent who is bad for them. Um, you shouldn't be able to do it willy nilly because then I'll get abused for sure.
Oh yeah.
And the cops. Mm, there's a large percentage of cops that beat their kids and or wife or have hurt a woman in their past. Like before the stresses of the job. Like this is
Right.
it attracts not all of them. It attracts a lot of cops who are like real fascist friendly, because they rule their family with an iron fist. And then when you send those people out to respond to domestic violence or potential violence against children, and the cops show up and they're like, "Did she deserve it or some shit?" We're not gonna say that, but we're gonna give you the eye. Like we got your back, man. Like,
Yeah.
or they don't separate the kids from the person in the correct way to ask them questions, um, or the person suspected of hurting them is a particular gender, and so you have somebody of that same gender question them. Like, come on, people! Like, you trying to do a good job or not? Like, this just don't
Yeah.
give a fuck. Like, that's what this looks like.
Pretty much. Yeah. And yeah, because the way I look at it, I guess I could say ideally, yes. If a child has a good mother and a good father, then yes, that's the ideal situation for everybody. That'd be great. But if their biological mother and or father are just absolute pieces of shit, then no, it is not best for the child to be with them. It just isn't.
And if you need more money and you to find like better foster parents, and so there's like if your agency needs more money and like why is everybody shy about this? Why is that like Why are politicians shy? Like, get pictures. Get pictures of every kid that you like. You need more money to give them a better life and uh, to investigate things better. Whatever. I just I realize things progress slowly, and that we can't change on a dime. And at the same time, like there is shit we need to be vocal about. And when people are in power are trying to play games, they're like, "Oh, we can't talk about that right now because there's another big thing going on." It's like, it's
Yeah.
like kids need help. There's a genocide. There's several genocides happening,
Yeah.
and like,
If I say like
we're
other
either
bigger
making
things,
money on it or helping it happen. Like,
yeah, what
or
they mean by
both.
like, yeah, because usually what they mean by other bigger things going on is like, well, these are the issues that I can actually raise money on. So those are the ones I'm going to talk about. So,
These are the things that matter to Kamala's way better than Trump, and
mhm.
she is cozy with money, cozy with cops. Um, I think she's been really rich for so long, and it has like been rich with power for so long that I think she doesn't see certain things, and I think she is wanting to do the best thing. I think there's a limit on that with foreign policy right now, because you have a lot of countries who are largely uncooperative, and a U.S. foreign policy that tries to dominate whoever it can,
Mm.
um, because that's how we stay safe. I don't know, like, is our
Mm.
safety more important than somebody else's? Um, what do you call it? Um, Not statute of living. Fuck, I can't remember the name of it. Quality of life. Is our
No.
safety like? There's a point when we push our buffer zone for more so far away from us that we're infringing on like 3/4 of the world's population with our buffer zone for us to feel safe. That
Right.
we're impacting their quality of life. Um,
Mhm.
or they don't even like quality of life. Like we aspire to have a quality of life. You know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
they're just trying to survive.
Yeah. Just life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Or like the future solving problems. Oh, that's a problem for tomorrow me if that happens.
right. Right. Yeah. That's the whole like hierarchy of needs things. Like we're already on this, like,
It's like a
I mean,
hierarchy of reality too. And
yeah,
you know,
basically if your life is, and I'm not trying to minimize like whatever struggles other people may be going through, but if your life is at the point where Hulu or Netflix is even a question on your mind, like you are already so high up, like beyond people who's
yeah.
like, am I going to eat this month? You know, yeah.
Hey, I will say
Or
that here that reminded me of something. This is an important thing to know. Uh, Evidence was leaked to ProPublica. Um, and a commentator made the statement that like they're like, shit, if your stuff's getting leaked to ProPublica, you have problems internally. Because apparently that's like if you go to them, you're wanting to cause damage.
mm,
I think because they're very much for the people,
well,
and
ProPublica, they better be.
yeah. So if somebody leaks something to them, it's like that person just said "fuck the machine." Like an insider from the Department of Defense, leaked this to ProPublica. And it's like, oh, shots fired.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's a big meeting about this. um, Apparently, the State Department knew that the Israeli government and military were diverting food and supplies that the U.S. was sending there. The U.S. has a law where if that's happening, we cease aid to the country doing it.
Well, if
There's
there's
an
anything
actual,
I know about the United States is we always follow our laws. So clearly,
this was an internal report that was supposed to be part of making the decision about whether or not Israel was committing war crimes, in particular diverting or blocking, destroying food being sent to Gaza, and that was happening, absolutely for sure. There's an internal State Department document that says such, and recommends that we cease or if we start drawing back aid to Israel because of this law. And then Anthony, because he's a fancy boy, he comes out the next day. He comes out like a few days later, and he's like, "We have not made the assessment that this is happening. We believe this is not happening." And it's like, fucker, this was sent. You saw this, and he doesn't have the authority to make that decision, which means this is Biden saying, "Fuck it." Remember how I said this is bad that like a president gets to act like a king? Watch me while I do that.
right? Yeah.
But here's what's
Yeah.
Biden has a hard on for I don't know, being the white knight in the desert in Israel, and
Which, I mean, to be honest, at this point, good for him for being able to have a hard on about anything. Let's be honest.
No. The thing is, America's gotten itself into such a position where they're our outpost in that region. Not just a military outpost, they're an enormous innovation financial outpost.
Yeah.
We can't afford for Israel to go down. So this is how this plays out. They know how much leeway they have because it's like weapons manufacturers. P&G has Procter and Gamble has an office there. They're like one of their main. They're like the main Procter and Gamble multinational corporation. Like that's their main footprint in that region, that part of the world in West Asia. So we've gotten ourselves in a position where, like, the next play, if Israel does this and starts killing a bunch of people, that like they're just like, oh, you're our like you're the animals we just slaughtered, and America's in a position where like we can't afford to get in the way because we can, but the people with the power and the money think they can't afford it. Or then they're making decisions for us that we can't afford that. So like we need the financial and business outpost and the military outpost because how will we project power financially and militarily? But here's the thing, like the American empire sphere of influence is shrinking back. Like this, the degradation of the American empire. We're the largest empire the world has ever seen. It's just not called an empire. But we totally do empire colonial things.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
No, so this is just how this part of the story goes.
Yeah.
And we can't change much about what's happening now, but we can start making changes to steer the future.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah.
Good news is I think Generation Alpha just isn't having any of this shit. I mean,
I think at least one of my kids is alpha.
Is Asher a little bit?
Well, what is the range for alpha?
I think Owen is Z.
Well, then Asher would be too. Yeah, but I think yeah, my daughter McKenna, she's alpha. So and lots of things that give me hope about
Wait,
her.
no,
Like,
that means she's younger than Asher.
oh, is that how it works?
Yeah,
Oh,
because it starts over again. We went X,
okay.
Y, Z, and
Oh no,
now
so yeah, she's a Gen Z or a Zoomer. Is that what they're
yeah.
calling them? Yeah. So to I guess to give the people some hope about at least her generation, something she said to me a while ago. Like I don't know if she brought it up or I brought it up. One of us said something about like Ben Shapiro, and she said, "Oh yeah," and I said, and I asked her, like, "How do you know who Ben Shapiro is?" And her answer was actually because he keeps going viral for being stupid. Like, oh yeah, I have hope. Or or my son, who I guess is maybe alpha, or I guess there's also a thing called an alpha zoomer, which is supposed to be like in between, kind of how I'm I guess a
Yeah.
zennial. Anyway, with the whole like notion of like people being like homosexual, bisexual, trans, anything in the LGBTQIA plus like categories. I remember like talking about him once. This was like years ago, so he was in like mid elementary school, early middle school. I don't know. He's like, yeah. It's like I didn't know people had a problem with that. Why do people have a problem with that? Like he was just like legitimately befuddled that that was even an issue. He's he's
Yeah.
like, it's like I don't know.
I know they seem
So,
confused on why borders are a big deal. Just like all the
hmm
stuff that was a big reason for lots of bad things.
hmm
They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's dumb. I don't get it. Why'd you guys do that?
Yeah.
Like,
Or
because it's important. We had this thing we came up with, and then we're like, oh, that's a really important thing, and just anybody's in the way of that thing is bad. And he's like, but you made it up. You could just change it.
yeah. And another thing like about my son in particular, I was super proud of because on more than one occasion, because like both of my kids, they still both consider themselves Christian. I'm like, okay. But my son, he on like on more than one occasion, it says like, but like I don't have to believe in like the literal like Genesis like creation story. Like I can still believe in evolution, right? And I'm like, yes. He's like, oh, good. He's like, it's like because that stuff's crazy. I don't remember exactly how he put it, but he just made it clear. It's like, yeah. So yeah. So yeah. So hopefully like if my kids are and yours are any indication, like the upcoming generations, like they're at least figuring some more shit out. So
I think
we
they're
are like,
kind of, in a way, they're kind of immune to things that influence the rest of us. They're there's
yeah,
so much influence. They're just kind of like, oh, I'll take part in that, but
yeah,
it's not shaping their reality as much.
yeah. Because I wonder how much of it is just like a breaking down of the way we used to structure things. Like things are so much less tribal. Whereas like before, where because like going back far enough in human history, like this was an advantage. It's like you literally listen to like whatever it was that your parents told you because that's how you survived. But nowadays, we're thinking like, oh, I can get information from other places, not just whatever like my parents or my Sunday school teachers or pastors or whatever. It's like, no, I'm not obliged to follow any specific person's way of thinking. Like I have so many ways of thinking to choose from. So yeah, hopefully that yeah, and so like an interesting thing I found out about that recently, apparently just the invention, or if you want to call it, or proliferation or whatever of universities was actually a huge like peace in that, because like before, because like with university, it's like, okay, you move away from home to go to a college somewhere else outside of your community to learn. But then once you go into that community, okay, you're not part of like your home, your family, like your neighbors, the people you know. It's like you're out on your own. So the whole idea of having a unique identity and like getting influence from other people not in your tribe, like
Hmm.
suddenly became like a big thing. Like, so I thought
That's
that
why
that was
college is bad for Christians. If you're real
right.
conservative,
Mm-hmm.
that's where
Amen.
they have them ideas.
Yeah, so I thought that was just like a super fascinating. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So we're, you know, I something I realized recently was like two things. JD Vance is saying messed up shit, right? But it's clear
Right.
he's saying it on purpose. Like he might not even agree with what he's saying, depending what it is. But like it is a move that that was thought out ahead of time that he's making. Like I'm going to say this thing tomorrow when this kind of question is asked, and so I've been kind of paying attention to Fox News and more like very left independent stuff, and everybody has their narrative, everybody's story, like their side is the good guy side, and or one of the good guys.
Right.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
some of them are like focused more on what's measurably happening versus their story or their story about what's happening. Fox News is very much about the story of what's happening. Um,
Yeah. Or their story of what's happening. Yeah.
yeah, and it looks like JD Vance is basically going, how do I make that story more real? How do we manipulate these people? You know what I mean? How do we
Mm.
give them a reality that benefits us? And
Yeah.
that's what it looks like. I realized corporations do that. The more money, more power you have, the more you're doing that to people. The more you're set, you're the more data you have access to, the more you're able to see where things are trending before anyone else, and say, okay, that's where things are going.
Mm-hmm.
We can't change. We can't change the track we're on, but maybe we can drive. We can hit the brakes and the accelerator when we want to, and
Right. Right.
um,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
so the more on the progressive side, the more an idea takes off in the progressive community, the more it means, the more likely it is that's where we're heading. And the more people agree that that's a good idea and see reality that way, the more it will become the future reality. And I think governments and businesses know that, and so they try to give us a reality that benefits them. Or in the case of government, maybe they think they're making decisions as for our own good, but still, also, how dare you?
Yeah. Because the problem with government, it's like I guess on a certain level, I can sympathize with like how difficult it is. Like, I would never want to be a politician for like a myriad of reasons. But part of it is, it's like there's that balance of feeling compelled to do what you honestly believe is best for the country, but then balancing that with, okay, what will actually get me elected or reelected,
So that I can do
so
some of
I
those
can
things. Yeah.
continue to do it. But then it just becomes a perpetual cycle of just what gets me reelected, and like I'll get to that stuff that I need to do eventually, but right now I need to get reelected. But it's just constant campaigning, and
Yeah.
with few exceptions, like you never get to the actual beneficial stuff that you really wanted to do in the first place. But yeah.
An interesting thing has happened. Um, AOC was big on self determination for Gaza and Palestinians, and and then she came out in support of. Then she became a Biden supporter. Like when he was trying to get reelected, took a picture with him with aviators, and they're both wearing aviators. It's like, that's him saying "fuck you" to her. He's like, "You need to do this for me. I know you need to do this for me." Anyway, so
Mhm.
I think she had an indication. I think she heard rumblings that he was probably going to be taken out from people inside, and they were going to try to push Kamala to take his place. Um, and she said some talking points about in support of her at the DNC, and it was she's been working tirelessly for Gaza and that.
Mhm.
She kind of made a face, and her tone of voice changed at one particular point,
Mhm.
and I'm like, she's never bent on her convictions before. And so people on the left were accusing her of selling out, and like somebody promised her, like a run to the presidency at some point, blah blah blah. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. That would be a big character change based on what she's done previously. Like, I think she knows something about what Harris's policies would be, but she can't say it right now because the security situation in the Middle East is so tenuous
Mhm.
that if she were to come out and say, um, if I'm president, I will enforce the laws we have. And since we fly 24/7 reconnaissance missions with drones over Gaza, we know exactly what Israel's been doing. And so when like spokespeople say, I will have to look into that. I don't, and Israel's looking into it, and I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of it. And
Right.
like, no, you don't have to do that. Just tell them what time it happened, and your guy with the records can just look it up, and you just be, oh, look at there, they did the thing. And
That's exactly how he sounds. Yeah.
so
Yeah. Mhm.
I I think Kamala can't say what she will do, and she's trying to like wink wink nod nod to people. Like, look, I don't have to do anything special except just say our laws matter. Sorry, like our laws tell us how to be. Sorry about your
Yeah.
luck.
Yeah.
Um,
They do be like it is. Yeah. Uh, so only because this is on my mind now. But speaking of like,
Wait, can I say one more thing
it,
before I forget?
yes.
Can you hold on to your thought?
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I do want to hear it.
This is how I
Um,
hold on to thoughts. Apparently, let's see if it works.
I lost it. Maybe
We're
it'll come
talking
back.
about
Maybe.
AOC and
Um, was it Middle East stuff still?
mm,
There, the U.S. government can't turn on a dime. So
yeah,
even if
okay.
even if everybody who's saying publicly like Israel has the right to self-defense and all that, which of course they do, and nobody's arguing they don't. Shut up. Um, like literally, no one asked that question. Like, how about answer the one they just asked you?
Mm-hmm. It's like yeah, like do they have the right to like self defend to the point where they're being more offensive? Like that's the question.
I mean, like the U.S. State
Yeah.
Department and Joint Chiefs and all that. They like, oh, remember that thing that like we were all worried about that Israel could do, or like, but they won't, right? And like, nah, I mean, probably they won't. It's happening, and now they're like, oh, how do you turn a country around? Like, can you e-brake lock and turn this bitch? Like, I think everything falls apart if we do that. So for now, it's like, it's just, I don't know, do what you want. It's legal. And meanwhile, we're just like, how do we get all of our shit out of there? No, we have a weapons storage facility there. That like
Yeah.
basically Israel is America's weapons depot. There are like our ammunition dump in the Middle East is so if a war breaks out, we go there and we start fighting, and we've already got shit to fight with, and then you just send more over instead of
Mhm.
because you can get there faster and start fighting.
Right.
So
Efficiency. Yeah.
Oh, the mistakes of yesterday that we get to live today. And
Yay.
we all get angry at each other. It's your fault. It's your fault. No, it's old people's fault. The past fucked us over, man. There's nobody's fault who's alive today. We're just all doing our best to get by.
Pretty much. But speaking of those alive today, and like again, to maybe potentially give hope to some people, like as far as future generations, at least as far as my kids are concerned.
The hope cannon, here it comes.
So in my house, anyway, it's almost become like a meme. Like when we talk about Trump, it's like I've talked to my kids about like and apparently I'm proud or encouraged that my daughter, like she's in high school, she's actually apparently is learning about like things like logical fallacies, like what those are, how to spot them and stuff.
They can go to town.
Yeah, I mean, for a Catholic school, this place seems like, I mean, it's Franciscan, so already as
He
far
was
as
kind of wasn't Francis Bacon kind of a scientist guy, philosophy logic guy?
well, okay. Francis Bacon is completely separate. So there's Saint Francis and Roger Bacon.
Roger Bacon's probably just a dude, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, fuck that guy.
Yeah. No, he was apparently like super smart, and
there was him, I guess.
Yeah, but anyway, but yes, but the school is Franciscan. So apparently, like, so as far as like Catholicism goes, Franciscan is like, if you're going to be any kind of Catholic, I guess that's from my perspective the kind of Catholic to be, because that's where we got our Richard Rohr. So
yeah,
it's better. But anyway, but like even like in her like theology class, like the teacher she has, he's actually a guy I'd met previously because I knew from like other ways, like super cool guy, and like the way like his class is structured, it's like it's not, it sounds like it's not like super dogmatic, like they have like actual discussions. It's like, so it even turned out like I guess they had a discussion the other day where he was like talking about different things that are considered heresy, but he just like put it up as far as like questions is like, okay, which way do you think? And apparently, like, I guess multiple people in the class apparently committed heresy. It was like, oh, that's how you think. Whatever. Okay, but I don't know specifically how it went, but
that's how he gets. That's an interesting way to bring in like that kind of learning.
Yeah, but it sounds like the discussions, like, I mean, it's a Catholic school, but it's like, I mean, obviously my kids, like, they're Christian, but they're not Catholic, so it's kind of cool that there's not that.
Let's not be crazy.
Yeah, right. But anyway, so yeah, so sounds like at least as far as like a Catholic education goes, it's pretty solid. But and I know like I said, my daughter, like, she's not Catholic. She kind of knows, like, especially when it comes to like the Catholic views on like birth control and stuff. She knows, like, yeah, they're kind of out there. But
it's like, that's fun. Just
which also it was great because like when she took health class last year, I guess her health class teacher was also not Catholic. So I guess the way he taught it, like he made it very clear. Okay, here's the things I have to say because this is Catholic doctrine. But I guess he, without being super explicit about it, made it very clear. Okay, don't actually do this.
He's like pointing to himself, going, "Some people think different things." Here's what those people, pointing to himself.
He's like, and maybe other people should too, and started pointing to like everyone. But no, he didn't. But anyway, but
that's great because how do you sue or fire somebody over that? It's like, just what do you call that? Inappropriate pointing, unacceptable pointing.
Like where's our like allegedly, in our opinion, like lower third that we had last year? Anyway, but yeah, so going back to like, so apparently like she is actually learning about like logical fallacies, but like it's to the point where like when we're talking about Trump, it's like I said, it's almost become like a meme in our house where it's like when you're like so illogical, it's like you're not even committing a logical fallacy anymore. It's just like so off the map of logic. So
it's
to
a
the point
gish
where
gallop of fallacies. That's another thing that
yeah.
like Trump's speech is have so many logical fallacies strung together, and he's reading the teleprompter. Like you can't be that good at it on accident. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
It's
remember.
like,
I think it was
keep
like
them
during
scared slash happy, and that's what we need to do for politicians.
yeah,
So they're
because
all
I
like,
remember like during like for the most recent debate that he had with Harris. I don't remember if it was like for the whole thing or they just like looked at a certain segment, but basically he had more lies than minutes that he was talking. So it was like more than a lie per minute. but anyway, but like
he's just a conservative talking points machine. He's
plus
he's gotten old, and now he's just spewing talking points.
Yeah,
They're
conservative
eating
talking.
the dogs.
Yeah, I'm gonna say like it's like conservative talking points plus they're eating the dogs because like what the fuck even is that, or like what the hell is even that?
Hey, guess what? A Haitian immigrant nonprofit is suing him the campaign for the legalese version of being a douchebag.
Well, I was gonna say I'll drink to that, but I'm out, so I need to go refill. I'll be right back. You continue.
I may have another as well.
Well, don't get it at the same time as I am, because then it's like awkward dead air. And if there's one thing our show can't do, it's awkward.
Right, my goodness, it's a well-oiled machine. It's a science we have here. All 0 viewers are.
Just ask all the people who aren't watching right now. They know. So.
All right, I'm gonna get a third.
Yep. Yes, so I'm down to just the regular psychopathy, which hey, even not in a pinch, it's good shit. But yeah, so I guess bottom line from what I was just saying there, folks, at least for my part, and my kids and whatever, people can be encouraged about the future. Like at least, so I know there's going to be at least 2 kids out there like who know that like
right? The logical creation is super encouraging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We can't be owned by people in charge if we know how to spot their lies.
Yeah, and also like the other, I had a great moment with my daughter because I guess one of the things they were talking about in her theology class was the whole notion of like where evil comes from. Like, does God create evil or does it just happen? Well, I mean, I can't dispute that, I guess, but I guess the heresy. This was part of the whole like, is this a heresy? Isn't like But I guess she was saying like, so she was talking about that and how they were discussing like where does evil actually come from. So I guess she was saying like so. And it sounded like that her theology teacher again wasn't even making any sort of like definitive statements. It was very much an open like, let's talk about this. What makes sense? Like, what do we see? Like when we read scripture or like when we think about God or whatever. But then so she made it sound like she said she couldn't remember, but almost like, it was like apparently officially like heresy to say that God creates evil. So then I was able to look up that verse in Isaiah, like it's like 45 or something, where it literally says, where it's God speaking says like, I create peace and create evil. And like, so I just literally pulled it up on my phone and read that to her. And she was like, what? I was like,
it's like, yeah, the things people don't know are in the Bible.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, even if God didn't like directly create evil, he created the potential for evil. Like, so that seems like quite a risk.
Yeah, because so here's the thing, the way I put it, and I know I've mentioned it on here before, like especially when we did our episode on the problem of evil a few weeks ago. Go back and watch that, folks. It was pretty quality. That was the one where our troll appeared. Wesley, I think that was the episode where he
finally made good. He hasn't been back. I mean, all you said was
Apparently.
like, I don't have bladder or time for this. And he was like, I don't know what to do. Bye.
Yeah, that was fun. But anyway, so to me, like, so if God is at all like, what the Christian religion says, where he's completely all powerful and he literally created everything. So like he created reality and therefore all the rules within and the way things operate and what the consequences for certain actions would be. It's like there can literally be nothing that is not his fault or his responsibility. So if evil exists, it exists because of the way he created reality in such a way that that could be a possible outcome of what he knew was going to happen.
Yeah.
So
Final
either
damnation
God,
for most of the planet. It's a big risk.
yeah, so it's like either God directly created evil like it says he does in the Bible, or he knowingly created things in such a way that he knew evil would result. So it's like
Yeah.
either way, like it's his damn fault.
What if God is good and evil because those are arbitrary labels we've given to it based on how it affects us?
Hmm.
And there is a God. God is everything. And so, like, good or evil is more about just how it is to us. Is it good or evil to us?
Yeah. Well,
But
I guess my next question
that's kind
would
of a
be,
ridiculous distinction.
yeah, like so. I guess my next question would be like, if there is a God, why didn't he clarify that for us?
Because that's an anthropomorphization. We're like, clearly the universe is like us. It looks so much like us.
What's an anthropomorphization? That was a word.
Well, why didn't God do that? And what was your question? Why didn't God do what?
Like so basically, like why didn't God make it? Like you say, well, what if this is how it really is? So like, so whatever. Like so this is basically my question for whatever possibility anyone throws out there. Or like, well, maybe this is what God meant to do, or this is why God made things this way. So my okay, well, if that is the case, why didn't God tell us? Why are we having to guess that that's what it is?
In that case, we could be putting human type agency on something that, like, we don't know the universe could be doing anything different than it's doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
And
but
it's like the whole
yeah.
thing of like God choosing to do something. If God is everything, God's not making choices. God just is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's my question to that is like, okay, but then why were we created in such a way that in order for something to make sense to us, we have to anthropomorphize it, even if that's an inaccurate way of looking at it? Why didn't God create us in such a way that our brain automatically creates an image of him that's actually accurate?
There probably were. I think there probably were beings or whatever consciousness is like above us. I think there probably are beings that have a bigger, more clear picture of that, just because they exist on like another layer of the onion. Um, but I don't think any. If that's the case, I don't think anyone really knows what's up. I think it's just one
Oh
layer
yeah,
of the onion talking to another layer, going,
yeah,
"Hey, did you see that?"
yeah. Which again, more reinforces to me the idea that there is no actual like personal God behind all of this. Because if
Not like
to
we
me,
were
if
sold anyway.
yeah, because to me,
Definitely, definitely
if there,
not. Yeah.
yeah, because like the way I put it before, like the idea that there is a personal God out there that wants us to actually have a full, like,
Right.
and loving relationship with him, the fact that he created us in such a way that we can't comprehend him fully and that his whole being is totally beyond our comprehension, like that's one of the dumbest things ever. It's like if he wanted to
No,
us if he wanted us to relate to him, he would have created us in such a way where we could relate to him and what he would make sense to us and he would not be so beyond us. Yeah.
yeah, I think I really feel like that is more modern, not like in a pejorative, good or bad kind of way, but more modern people trying to take something that was very meaningful and explanatory to people in the past and trying to like apologetize it into having meaning in the present. It's like, no, the
Mm,
story was supposed to develop. They're supposed to
yeah.
say that does not comport with reality. What is else happening? And then instead of saying like, no, that's what was happening. Everything else we're learning now is bullshit. And of
Right.
course, when we had less ways to measure things, we knew what was going on. Like, it's like no, that gave people meaning. And when you look at this is one of the fun things that like creationists like to do, where they're like new discovery, or scientists said the wow thing, and they're like, oh, there's a Bible story like that, like because they were trying to explain reality. Like, of course,
Right.
the one that got written down and was super popular was the one closer to the truth. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
intuitively made more sense. Um,
Yeah.
but all we had was story to make sense of things. We didn't. Nobody was doing the science stuff yet. Nobody hadn't been super easy to stay alive long enough to get into science.
It's like, oh, I'm alive long enough for this to matter. Shit, I don't know what to do now.
Like, hey, what's that thing that we don't have? Pastimes, hobbies. What do we do with those? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe we learn shit. We can learn shit. Like that helped us like survive until now, right? We'll learn better things to help us do the big of life more and
Ooh,
better.
yes.
More
Mm-hmm.
kids,
Mm-hmm.
maybe less kids, but healthier kids.
Yeah, you got to weed them out. Yeah.
And that'll be cool. Then we're like, oh crap, we're running out of people. Um, I don't know because we did the whole like sexual rights thing, and then we didn't think about the consequences of like, oh, what if we stop replacing ourselves? Um, I don't know. Well, we ran out of houses in the U.S., at least in this part of the country, and so like it's like we were getting ready for less people.
Mm.
Crazy thing, you know how like in China they were everybody and their grandma was investing in real estate, and so they're. Do you know about this?
No.
All right, so in the 2000s, early 2000s, I think, um, the Chinese government opened up. You weren't allowed to invest in real estate or buy a rental property that you rent out to people or whatever, because that was a kind of personal property that Chinese government and communism, their kind of communism, frowned upon. But they're like, oh, we need people to burn a lot of money on things that don't matter. Quick, what do we have? Like lots of land nobody's using. All right, so we'll build shit and tell people they can buy it, and and it'll be and so people instead you lose money in a savings account in a Chinese bank currently.
Mm.
It doesn't gain enough interest to even keep up with inflation.
Mm.
So if it's in a bank, you're losing your money. It's going to be worth less just having it there. So they put it in something tangible, and so there's like whole luxury cities of like it could hold like a million people. There's like 10,000 people there max. It's like a ghost town. But
Mm-hmm.
there's cities like this
Yeah.
all over China that are built up, and they're investment properties. Um, and some of them didn't even get finished. People still bought them. But guess what? A lot of them are in areas where it won't be affected by rising sea levels, and there's going to be a lot of climate refugees who need a place to
Mm.
live. China needs workers like you wouldn't believe. They're also super racist. So they're going to have their own mega movement, I'm sure.
Fun.
Or orange haired like Chinese Trump. Um, uh, but can you imagine the UN going seriously, China? Like, like nobody's using this. Like, you, this is one of your biggest mistakes in your history of economic woes to be turned around. Then you're like, no, we're too racist. We're just gonna bet on the robots. Like we're just gonna make a bunch of robots and hope they like us.
Fuck.
If the robot apocalypse happens, I bet they come from China because China doesn't have enough people to run their economy or their country, and they're gonna have to robotize all kinds of shit to get anything, to even just get the old people taken care of in China.
Yeah, for real.
And can you see the robots like getting smart enough, being like, "Man, China sucks. There's no natural resources here. They got a bunch of trees. Can't do shit with it. Like, there's no oil. Can you imagine the robots? Like, like employment migration with robots.
They're like Japan seems pretty chill. But
I mean, they've had awesome robot movies forever, where we almost win every time. I mean,
for real. Yeah. Man. So, like, we're at the point where we're like, I don't even know, like, how on topic we are anymore to know when is a good time to wrap up.
I don't think there's one reality. I think you talk to more people with a different view on reality, and you get closer to understanding what it is. Yeah. I don't think reality is a particular thing. It's probably a probability. It's probably it's probably the same kind of like structure as everything down to subatomic. You know, like electrons are atomic, but electrons aren't anywhere. There's a probability of them being somewhere, but they're technically potentially everywhere at once until you measure them.
In fact, like to the point where there's, I don't know how like accepted this is, but at least to the point where someone actually put forth a theory that there is only one electron in the entire universe.
I'm telling you, man, the closer we get to like real science stuff, the more we're going to be like, oh, fuck, I just need a story to make this make sense. Like, you're like, oh, there's one electron. Everything is just one electron being everywhere at once. So is that God? I don't know. Could be. It might not be. We'll never know. And they're like, how do we know more of the same?
Yeah. So I guess to me, one of the most like comforting in a way, like things that I've learned is like, there are certain things that we just don't know and maybe will never know.
Yep.
So
I think there will always be something that looks like God. Right? Something potentially that looks like God. Something you could say looks like God, and your life can make sense with it. But it's always just the next thing we don't understand. I don't think might not be an end to science. It might be just like a fractal zoom in or zoom out. Like you zoom in far enough, and look at quantum particles. It's like zooming. You zoomed in so far, you're looking at a different reality. Like physics are different there.
So that
maybe
was
it's the
like,
same way when you zoom out.
Yeah. So that was a fun thing. I think it was like my sophomore year in high school. So at my high school, we did a thing that was called J term. So basically during the month of January, because it was like in between semesters, but like just for the month of January.
Sounds like a little like Jewish learning holiday that you did. J term.
Not quite.
They're all
basically
J.
What I meant was like, so during the month of January, we had one class all morning and one class all afternoon. It was like basically like electives type stuff. Yeah. So my sophomore year, in the morning,
that's nice.
I took microbiology, and in the afternoon, I took astronomy.
It's the same,
it's like,
man.
Yeah, so it's like I spent all morning learning about how tiny things were and spent all afternoon learning how enormous and vast everything was. So
and at least at those two scales, like the same physics apply to both.
So what year was that? January of like 99. That was a fun month, but yeah. Now, And this was also, again, I was going to a very like conservative evangelical Christian school, so there was like that whole like bent like bias on everything as well. But
Man, why can't
yeah,
there be a realistic like teenage angst series set at a conservative Christian school, but it's not pro-Christian. It's like not pro-Christian. It's just kind of like here's the experience of people in this environment.
hmm somebody get on that.
That won't get off the ground. There's
Yeah,
just too much money going the other way.
for real. All right. Well, any other thoughts, like things you wanted to get to on the topic, or a tangentially related topic, or anything else we mentioned tonight?
Maybe nothing matters. Maybe it all
Ooh,
matters because it can't not matter because it couldn't go a different way.
ooh. Yes, like
Uh,
maybe like when nothing matters, everything matters. So nothing
yeah,
matters, so everything matters.
there's ebbs
Yeah.
and flows in life. It's not any mistakes that we made. Like I didn't get depressed because of mistakes I made. It was it was time to be depressed.
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Oh, I'm really depressed." Um, Instead of looking at, "Okay, this is happening. What happens next? What happens after the depression? It gets better. All right, so I'm looking for opportunities now for things like where's the better? The better's coming because it just is, or different's coming. Where's where's the different? All right, where's the different that I'm on board with? Let's ride with that different. Like I'll say yes to that. That person said the thing that was good for my brain, and uh, what people have a picture of a version of reality that helps me be like feel better, be better, and
hmm
uh, and the people that are just seeing things in a real toxic way because they're all ate up that it is how it is, and they're like, I'm gonna take it back to the way I like it, and
Right.
um, no, find what's happening next and ride with it. Like,
There you go.
how
Yeah.
do I surf that shit
Yeah.
wave if it's a shit wave,
Yeah.
or if it's a rainbow wave and you're like sparkles and rainbows, trees and sunflowers.
But yeah, and as you ride with it, figure out how you ride with it.
Yeah, yeah. Find
Yeah.
your story. Like, what is? That's what I'm.
hmm
That's what I wanted to get before. Um, it's just religions have stories that lasted a long time because they meant a lot of things to a lot of people.
hmm
So that's not a bad place to start. Uh, but it's a bad place to stay. I would say for most people.
Right.
Um, and go further and um, find the story that makes a life existence make sense to you. Doesn't mean that story
Yes.
is factual, but it is like the magic, like cheat sheet for for coping with existing.
Mm.
Nobody asked for this. You know, you
Right.
know. Here's another thing that I think we get to before. We so far it's kind of impossible to define what is life or what is alive because every definition so far there is something that people would agree is not alive, but based on the criteria it is.
Mm.
And so it's
hmm
changed the criteria. And
Yeah.
what it's starting to look like is that alive and dead is a distinction based on a perception from a particular point of view in the spectrum.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah. Because
it's like
that's. hmm
this is what
Yeah.
physics does at this scale, like the people scale.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, just to the fact, like even like how we look at
Unicron's
life.
real, man. That's what I'm getting at.
Fuck yeah. Um, but yeah, but this gets back to like what we were talking about before, where people look at like the way the world is and they think more of like a static view, like this is how things are, this is how things always have been, and how they always should be. But like we don't realize how much everything changes, and therefore like literally everything is on a spectrum. So like so
Yeah.
even like talking about life, talking about like evolution, it's like everyone talks about like trying to find like transitional species and like okay, literally everything is a transitional species.
And good luck
Like
finding fossils because it's super specific what for them to happen.
yeah. Yeah, so that's what like some like evolutionary biologists have said like in a way like having holes in the fossil record,
Makes
at least
sense.
at least from the way we currently operate, is actually helpful because then we actually can like differentiate between different what we call species or whatever. Because like as it was like everything that was ever born was the same thing as its parents, and its descendants were the same things as it. But somehow things change. Like the one analogy I really like is like if you just look at yourself, like if you were to take like a photograph of yourself every day for your entire
Hmm.
life, it's like okay, my photograph today, like I looked yesterday, and I look like I will look tomorrow. But if you go back like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, like there's obviously a change, but if you're just looking like day to day, you don't necessarily see it. But so it's like this,
If you go back like 90 years, you're just some vitamins.
right? Um, but yeah, so it's like the same
Part
like
of a
with,
steak and part of an egg and part of some bread. Like,
but yeah, so it's like the same like with different species of
oh,
animals.
wait. People are sandcastles that the universe makes.
Oh, yeah,
My
it's one way to look
sandcastles
at it,
suck in comparison.
right? Yeah. So yeah, so like with I guess like with all that in mind, like yeah, I mean, I guess it's maybe appropriate that I feel like I don't really have like a like closing like parting thought to leave with everyone because it's almost
No,
like
that's good.
yeah, there kind of isn't one. It's just like everything just kind of is what it is, and
And maybe what it will be.
yeah. So I guess if anything, this like that's what my T-shirt says. That's all I got.
What if
So,
time is the medium through which consciousness moves?
mm. It's like that sounds poetic enough to be real.
No, I mean, because like time is basically just the measurement of change. It's like how much this general amount of change has happened, measured by all these gears that did something, and whatever. People decided there's this many seconds in a minute, and this is bullshit, and you can't do the math easily. Should have been multiples of 10 or 20. Come on, we've got that many digits. It was right there, people.
Right?
I distracted myself.
Mm.
What was I saying?
I don't even know. So maybe that means it's time to wrap up because, like, at this point, like, I don't, for me anyway, it's just the beer talking at this point, and it just joined the
Yeah.
party, so it has no idea what it's talking about. So I don't know. All the no people who are watching right now are probably super confused anyway. So
I don't know. Everybody be themselves. They can't prove you're not God.
exactly. Yeah, sir, try
Yeah.
that. Like, just tell someone you're God and tell them to prove you wrong.
Look, all signs are pointing to I'm the only one who exists. Like, what are you talking about? You're like, I'm the only one who knows they're seeing this for sure. Like,
Hmm. Like, I'm the only one who can prove to me that you even exist and are talking to me right now. So,
we're probably just all meat robots. I mean, look, how does I think our first clue was that we were able to make intelligence of any kind. Or like, at what point does it become sentient? Or like, are we sentient? Like,
Right?
I mean, we
Yeah.
just, yeah, we do whatever we can to survive and reproduce. Survival, reproduce, and everything else is secondary. And we've kind of made stories around that to make everything interesting and awesome. But yeah, it's just positive and negative, ebbing and flowing.
Yep. Ebbs and flows. Yeah.
It's a wave function. So how you measure it is how it will be, right? If you measure it as a
Mm.
wave, it'll be a wave. You know, with photons. If you measure it as a particle, it'll be a particle.
Hmm.
Um, so that's something that I have found that's been really helpful in my life is how I judge what is happening is how it will be for the future.
Oh.
Uh,
Hmm.
like I think that's the hack for shaping the future is
Mm.
looking at what's happening now as raw materials to do something with,
Mm.
having a clear idea of what's possible with the materials you have. To go in a particular
Yeah.
direction, do that. Don't get super upset because you can't, because it's fucking science. What are you gonna do with it? Like you can or you can't do certain things, and there's time and
Yeah.
restrictions, and
Yeah.
um,
There you go.
I think as we became an atheist society, I think a lot of believers in various forms that have just kind of like it's their framework, but it's not really their faith. Um,
Mm. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think we moved to an atheistic society, and we've been there for a while, and people are like trying to cosplay as a particular faith. It's like that's really not how any of this
Oh.
works anymore. Um, and we need to roll with what's next. It's already happening,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
and you can judge
Mm.
it as good or bad, and that determines your experience. um,
Yeah.
and I've even gone so far as like if the U.S. goes fascist for a while, if we become the mirror universe in Star Trek, where like Starfleet is this imperial force and all that, would it be better to see that as good? And and if the percentage of people who see that as good hits a certain point, I think we can't help but move in that direction. Like a quarter of the people in a culture, if they adopt a certain way of looking at it, the rest of the culture will integrate that way of maybe not adopt it, but integrate it into their worldview. I think because after a certain point, that many people or that percentage of society isn't worth fighting because of what you'll lose if you do. I
Mm.
think it's evolutionary thinking. So you get about a quarter in order for like the other three to beat that one quarter, or the three quarters to beat that one quarter. What we would lose in the process or the progress that we would give up to do that, it's not worth it. And so we're like, okay, we'll just integrate it. And I think that is what is
Mm.
happening on YouTube. There's all kinds of people, left and right, and corporate, um, trying to tip the scales in their favor. Like they're,
Yeah.
and the rest of us are kind of just, we can just be pawns in that scheme. Um,
Yay.
but just yeah, look at the news and the YouTube videos, commentary things. You look at it and like this is a version of reality somebody's trying to give me, and it gets that's what we do. That's where all of us get our versions of reality is from other people. We can't help it.
Yeah.
Um, but suddenly everything's really dystopian, and um, which is also kind of empowering because then when you see the game that's playing out, and you're like, oh, that's the game. I'm not going to play that game, and you just vote third party. Like Jill Stein, her whole point, I think, is just to fuck with the system. Just break the system.
Yeah.
And everybody opts out, votes for me. That's why she appears only every 4 years. Why there's no real like groundwork being laid for the Green Party to be anything in particular. It's just somebody trying to break the system.
Yeah.
I won't shame anybody for doing that. I don't think it's the best bet in this election.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe things and stuff be forever with your people.
Yep. That was yeah. I was about to say. I think my brain's kind of parking for the evening. So
that's good. That's good. Find the edge of your thinking where your brain is like, oh, that's not real, and that's the thing we can't think about.
Yeah. But yeah, see, even though like I said, like tonight, like I was like, oh, Matt had a thing to talk about. I have no idea where it's going to go, but like I knew this would be there was enough potential there to turn into an entire episode, and here we are. So
we're gonna colonize something. Like as people, we just gotta we're trying to survive, right? You're gonna choose what you're gonna colonize.
It's like a choose your own adventure.
It is.
Yeah.
But we might only see the first chapter. Like this is the part where I choose the thing that does the stuff, and then that was my big contribution to everything, and now I'm just gonna hang out and have some fun.
Yeah, and hopefully it's for the people. So, all right. Well, this was fun, as always. So,
find your story, people.
Right, and let other people have theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all just anybody's best guess anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and don't feel a responsibility for someone else's story. Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be a whole another topic. All right. But anyway, so yeah, once again, like thanks for those of you who like hung out and watched at least periodically. Yeah, feel free to, if you're watching later, still leave your comments. We'll check back with that and respond to those as well. And yeah, if you thought this was cool, share with someone you think might also think it was a thing for. Anyway, yeah, I think you already gave us our benediction. So any other parting thoughts?
For other people. There we go.
See you next week. Bye.